So, in light of the early struggles that the Utah Jazz are currently experiencing to start out this 2023-2024 season, one thing I would like to go ahead and highlight out the gate is the lack of energy that we're seeing on the defensive side of the ball. Now, that's not necessarily to say that they haven't been giving any effort, but more so to say that sometimes the zone defense doesn't work particularly well, and sometimes certain players get called out in one-on-one situations and can't hold their own. That being said, there are many things to like about them from a defensive standpoint, and all of those I will go over in this video. Now, the main issue that is blatantly obvious is the simple fact that they tended to struggle against teams that were at the top of the league. That being said, that span of games is roughly behind them, and they have a lot more manageable games coming up, and particularly this next 6. Now, they started out the season going 1-3, with the most impressive loss, so to speak, being the most recent one against the Denver Nuggets, in which they only lost by 8 points, 102-110. That being said, blowout losses to the Kings, as well as the Suns, tended to have the more negative effect as far as their defensive rating went. Now, their one win did come against the Clippers, who ironically end up being the best in the league as far as defensive rating goes, with a 102.2. Where did the Utah Jazz rank, you might ask? Well, they're dead last, 119.8 at this point. As the saying goes, it has to rain for you to appreciate the sun, and right now they are going through it on the defensive side of the ball. Continuing with the stats that tell the true tale of both sides of the ball, with defensive rebounds, they average 32.5 a game, or roughly 76.5% of the rebounds that there are available on that side of the floor, which ranks 23rd in the league. Who's first? The Celtics, with 38 a game. However, that only makes up 71% of the rebounds available on that side of the floor. They are 27th in steals with 6.3. First in the league is the Clippers again with 11. With blocks, they rank 27th again with 3.3. Leading the league is the 76ers in Philadelphia with 9.3 blocks per game. The last negative metric that I have to bring up is going to be the opponent's points in the paint, in which they allow 57 points per game, which ranks 27th in the league. Last place is the Pacers, allowing just 3 points more at 60 a game. And then best in the league is the Celtics again, with 36 points allowed. Now, for reference, most teams tended to be more in the mid-40s range, which makes it slightly difficult to defend this defense that we're seeing on the interior, especially when you take into account the fact that Walker Kessler was supposed to be taking that next step as a sophomore in the league, while also having interior help from Lauri Markkanen and the newly additioned John Collins. The other thing that there is to talk about is the positives on defense, and while there are few, they are still of note. They sport the 11th best opponent's points off turnovers with just 17.5 a game. The best in the league is the Pacers, surprisingly, with 11.7, and worst is going to be the Pistons with 23.5. They also sport the third best opponents in second chance points, meaning rebounds that the opponents get and end up making a shot on the offensive side of the ball. In that category, they only give up 9.8 points. The league best is the Bucks with just 7, and league worst is the Pelicans with 22.3. The final category has them ranked 9th, and that is in the opponent's fast break points, where they only give up 12.8 per game, with the league best being the Grizzlies with only allowing 9.3, and last being the Timberwolves, allowing a whopping 25 points per game. Now, of course, as the saying goes, men lie, women lie, but numbers don't. However, numbers can tell different stories depending on how you frame them and what kind of context you give them. I believe the most important thing to go ahead and give them grace for is the fact that they haven't had the easiest schedule through 4 games. Now, admittedly, their one game did come against the Clippers, but it was a nail-biter that went down to the wire, relying on Jordan Clarkson playing lockdown defense on Kawhi Leonard, which quite possibly is one of the less preferred matchups that a team would like to have if they are required to be on the defensive side of a last shot in the final seconds of a match. They ended up losing their home and season opener against the Sacramento Kings in blowout fashion. They followed that win against the Clippers with a blowout loss 126-104 against the Suns on their road opener. Then they ended up playing against the Nuggets and had a much more impressive showing that saw them sticking their heads in the game, and a surprisingly more interesting shooting night from their guards, particularly Colin Sexton and Talen Horton-Tucker, who seemed to be getting a lot of flack for not producing on the offensive side of the ball, though he was started at that point guard role. I myself am willing to admit that I was one of those critics, and while I do hope that he becomes more comfortable and has more nights similar to the night that he had previously against the Nuggets, I am not sold on the fact that he will remain consistent in that aspect of the game and avoid poor shooting nights. Jordan Clarkson is still waiting to right his wrongs. However, he has been given more grace because of his performance in the late game situations of the only game that they've won so far this season. Now, across the next 6 games, you have the Grizzlies, the Magics, the Timberwolves, the Bulls, the Pacers, and the Grizzlies again. All of those games are extremely winnable. Following that last game against the Grizzlies up, they play the Trailblazers again before they have to play the Suns back to back. That being said, these next 7 games specifically are ones that are very winnable, and if you're the Utah Jazz and you're trying to shake things up in the West and make people really pay attention to you, these are games that you must win. Starting out tonight against the Grizzlies, who started out their season 0-4 and have had some surprisingly good play from their starters, whether it be the Desmond Banes, the Marcus Smarts, or the Jaren Jackson Jr.'s, or the Xavier Tillmans. It just hasn't been enough, and their bench unit, consisting of only really Derrick Rose, hasn't been able to fit the bill and help them close out games. With that in mind, this is the opportunity over these next few games for them to right the issues on their defense that were so blatantly exposed to their eyes by the better teams in the league. And quite honestly, I prefer it that way, because if you're a young, growing team like the Utah Jazz are in the middle of a faster than expected rebuild stage, you want to go ahead and get those issues found early and often, and also expose as much as possible so that you can shore up those lines for when you have to play more mediocre competition and slightly fringe-ish playoff-bound teams, so that those games seem to be much more manageable. That way, also, you end up building up confidence when you successfully execute your counter plans to your exposed weaknesses from those higher seed playoff teams, or the expected higher seed playoff teams, and then when you play them again, you get to see the fruits of your labor on full display. With that being said, you guys let me know how serious you think that their defensive woes are at this point in the season. I am willing to attribute some of it to the fact that they played the Nuggets and Suns, who are going to be guaranteed 2 of the top offenses in the league, as well as the Sacramento Kings, who have simply just slightly improved based on their last year's success. As always, thanks for tuning in this video. It's your boy Wraith Hoops. Make sure to like this video, subscribe, and turn on those post notifications to help us grow the channel and the community. And as always, good morning, good evening, good night, no matter where you are on the globe watching. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.